Hi everyone, Daniel Torres here, bringing you a new festive season special episode of Lead and Thrive, the podcast focused on going deep into consumer goods top leaders' most meaningful leadership experiences. After a tough year for everyone, we wanted to share a story that's full of positive takeaways. SVP Endre Szabo, who I've come to know for the last year, is an active fundraiser, and due to COVID, he embarked on an epic solo bike trip this summer. I wanted to invite him to learn more about this experience, other experiences that he's had in the past, and also wish all of you listeners a great end to 2020 and a great start to 2021. Endre, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you very much, Daniel. I'm fine. Have a little bit of corona in the house. Wife and sons got the corona. Otherwise, all good. And thank you very much for inviting for a discussion into your new podcast. It's very exciting that you started up a new podcast.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. No, and I'm very happy of the guests we've had so far. I have actually a few more lined up for January, but happy to have you here for this Christmas special that we're going to record today, where we'll actually discuss something a bit different to what we normally discuss, but looking forward to it. But first of all, I think you're in Amsterdam right now, aren't you?
Technically outside of Amsterdam. It's a suburb. Those who know Amsterdam, I'm living in Amstelveen, which is a suburb between the Schiphol and Amsterdam. But a short bike ride to the city center. So practically it's Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's where the Ajax stadium is, right?
The Ajax Stadium is like 3-4 kilometers from our place. If I move to the riverbank of the Amstel, I can see it very well. So it's not far from here. But in general, everything is very close to each other in the Netherlands because it's a small country.
Yeah. Well, I know though that you're originally from Hungary. Have you lived in other places prior to Amsterdam, between Hungary and Amsterdam?
Yes, I'm Hungarian. I was born and raised in Hungary, and I got interesting job opportunity more than 20 years ago when I first moved outside of Hungary. And since 1999, I've been living and working outside of Hungary. I consider Hungary as my home and probably will be retiring there one day. But since that, in the last 20 years, I live in 6 different countries in Europe.
Wow, which ones?
So Latvia, Lithuania, the 2 years each, and then a year in France where I did my MBA at INSEAD, then Belgium, Czech Republic, and the Netherlands.
Not bad. You haven't lived in Barcelona so far, though.
I have not lived in Barcelona. I know Barcelona very well and always happy to come back there. Yes.
Yeah, you never know. By the way, since we're approaching Christmas, out of curiosity, what does Christmas look like in Hungary?
Yeah, Christmas starts on weekends before the Christmas itself. So there is a celebration of Advent. So we counting back the time. There are also a couple of old traditions during this time in December. For example, when people are warming up some lead and then putting into the water and seeing what figure comes out from the fixer lead, and then they reading into the future. But Christmas itself is starting on the evening of 24th. So that's when the Christmas tree is set up. And then we are giving gifts to each other and waiting for a little Jesus to born. According to many other places in the world, Santa Claus has no association with Christmas. It's all about little Jesus and the Christianity. So that's 24th. We would usually eat fish, so no meat on that day.
That's typical of Spain. Like in the rest of Spain, they also do that. So I imagine this year you're staying in Amsterdam, though, all things considered.
Yes, we are. It is not advised to travel. And also, even if we would be so silly to travel, we would end up in 10 days quarantine in Hungary, which is no point to go there. But anyway, we are isolated because we have corona in the house.
Yeah, true. A sign of the times. I mean, it's been a crazy year, hasn't it? I guess that coronavirus caught you at the beginning in Amsterdam as well. I know that you were traveling quite a lot at the time, so it must have been quite a change from one day to the next.
Yes, usually my work involved a lot of traveling, at least once a week, sometimes more of I would travel. I have a big geographical responsibility in 3 continents. And indeed, it was quite a sudden and very sharp change in the work style in March.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that we got in touch around that time. I think the first time that we connected was around that time. And then in the summer, when I remember things were a bit more quiet in terms of coronavirus, I saw you did a big biking challenge, which I think you'd been doing for some years, but I didn't know about, which has some fundraising related to it. Very interested to know about it, Endre. How did that come up?
Yeah, thank you for following my journey and the whole challenge. Although for many, maybe it sounded like out of blue, it is not completely out of blue. In the last 4 years, we have been organizing bike group rides, and that was I initiated back in 2016. The whole idea came when the migrant crisis erupted in Europe.
Yeah.
And it actually found me and my family in Hungary in summer holiday when all of those migrants were walking through Europe. I felt, just start from humanitarian perspective, I need to help those people somehow. So very quickly organized a couple of fundraising. And then through this fundraising, I had the opportunity to meet some very nice people who are behind a very, very small nonprofit called No More Walking, which is obviously named after the situation. And then we also organize like collecting socks within the company, because those who arrive in the Greek islands in the cold winter, they always got sick from not having dry clothes, especially footwear. And because my primary sport is now cycling, I used to play soccer before, but now it is cycling as I cannot run. The idea came is to organize a group ride, and with that one to raise awareness and funds as well for some people who need this. And then because it was the migrant crisis, we decided to support those children who were migrant, not having any families, so-called unaccompanied children. Wow. Still, as we speak today, there are more than 2,000 of them in Greece. They don't have family. I mean, how they get there is a very, very different story. And then we established a very, very good collaboration with Greek non-profit organization called Metadrasi. And they are one of the oldest non-profit, non-government organization. And then we started our bike rides. Our first bike ride took place in May of 2016. Okay. And then we rode from Amsterdam to London and back practically over a weekend, under 72 hours. We left on Friday afternoon, and then we got back to Amsterdam on Monday lunchtime. I think the first group was like 20 riders, and very, very international, all over Europe, from everywhere. Some of them are colleagues and some of them are partners and friends. So it was a mixed group. And then we continued this over the years, 2017, 2018, 2019. We were cycling Amsterdam, Brussels and back, Amsterdam, Leuven and back. And then 2019, we cycled from Amsterdam to Paris. And sometimes we had bigger group, sometimes a smaller group. But every year we raised meaningful funds for Metadrasi. Now, those who are in the non-profit sector, they know that funding usually comes with conditions. So the donors are always telling how the non-profit should spend the money. Therefore, business development in the business terms is rather difficult in non-profits, because there are not much so-called unconditional or free money. Yeah. Right. So the donors are giving to certain things and then difficult to develop. But with our money, which was raised and sent directly to Metadrasi, they had some unconditional funds, and with that funds they could develop further their services for the unaccompanied children. They opened shelters, they took kids out from the camps, and then they provided them more normal life and hope as well. One of the projects which we help them to explore is to try to find a way to get these children out from the deadlock in these shelters and camps and move them to another country to become part of the social system. So in January 2018, I believe, we helped 5 kids to move from Greece to Portugal, where they became part of the normal social system. That was quite a breakthrough.
Yeah.
So all of this helped Metadrasi a lot to develop their services. And then last year, as a first European organization, received the prestigious Hilton Humanitarian Award, which was given to them in October last year in Los Angeles. And that comes with quite a substantial money. It comes with $2 million.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I guess that $2 million was a substantial amount for them. It was, I don't know what percentage of their budget that was, but I imagine quite a lot.
It is. And of course, with that money, they can do much more for the unaccompanied children.
Yeah. And these unaccompanied children were mainly based in Greek camps, I imagine.
Yes. On the mainland and in the islands, they are all over the place. Of course, there are different segments in terms of children, if you can use that word. Because there are the babies and the toddlers and teenagers. And surprisingly, the most vulnerable in this whole situations are the teenagers.
Because they're the ones that are alone, I imagine.
Yes, the smaller kids are usually taken care of by very, very basic support and help.
Yeah.
But the teenagers are always neglected. But at teenage times is very, very critical from personal development perspective. And therefore, to make sure that these kids are not left alone, but receiving the right education is very, very critical for their longer term development.
Yeah, no, I imagine. What happened this year, Endre? Because obviously to organize a 20 plus people biking trip, it was probably illegal even, no?
Yes, indeed. It would have been difficult from many, many perspectives, from legislative perspective as well. Many countries were still in lockdown. So it became quite clear in the spring, in March, that we will not be able to do a spring ride. And then also as time and the corona situation developed, it also became quite clear that it will be not possible at all to do a group ride this year. But we wanted to do something. I wanted to do something. And I wanted to keep the whole platform alive and continue raising funds and awareness for those who need the most. And as you can imagine, in this difficult time, those who are in need are even in a bigger need for help and support. Metadrasi got this great breakthrough last year. We were also considering to redirect our attention. And then we got in contact with a very, very nice project, which is called the Omoana House. This is a AIDS children's shelter in Uganda. So because the group ride was not possible, I thought, well, I will do it in solo. And those who want to join me virtually or maybe along the way can join me and set my targets, which obviously could set more to my stretching physical goals, and decided to cycle from Hungary to the Netherlands.
Wow, which was probably the longest ride. I don't know if it was probably the longest ride you done with the fundraising for sure. Was it your personal longest ride as well?
I mean, the personal multi-day ride, yes.
Yes.
So it was 1,700 kilometers. And then I completed it in 10 days.
Wow.
So on average 170K day. My longest ride ever has been 300 kilometers. So it was,
a few times
that
more.
Is the longest. So 170K, which is like more than 100 miles a day for 10 days is, for certain perspective is a Grand Tour level.
I know.
So in Vuelta and the Tour de France, they are riding for 20 days, similar distances. And those guys, they do it for a living.
Yeah.
And so, yes. And so physically, it was a stretching for sure.
Yeah, well, I'll go into this in a minute. I wanted to ask you as well, is there any reason why you decided to change like the fundraising from the Greek Association helping unaccompanied underage people or to the institution in Uganda? Was there a reason behind that or?
Yeah, but the reason I mentioned before is that Metadrasi got a breakthrough. They got enough funding. So the funding we collected a year was somewhere between to 20 to 50,000 euro, which obviously very, very substantial.
Yeah.
And I consider that was an investment collaboration with them to get to the new level. But as we remain very, very close relationship, but I saw that the similar way, maybe finding a new partner, our money could mean more. Our dollars could give more value than with Metadrasi, because Metadrasi is now seems to be okay.
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Never enough, and they always need help. So anybody's listening this and interested to help, I suggest Metadrasi is a wonderful organization, and they do a great job.
Maybe actually later you should send me. You can send me the links of both Metadrasi and Omoana House, so that people can learn more about it. Actually, I'll put the links on the website once this is posted. How did the actual adventure go, Endre? I mean, did you have to prepare much, both physically and logistically, before departing?
Yes, of course. It took a couple of weeks of logistical preparation, and physically I train. So I had a good level of fitness. During the spring lockdown, I had a challenge on myself, and I was cycling every day, at least 40K.
Wow.
So for more than 70 days, every day I was cycling 40 days. But fitness perspective, I was ready. I couldn't really train much more, and then the logistics were all challenging. It was self-supported, pretty much solo ride, so I needed to figure out how I carry my stuff, and have the right luggages, not too many clothes and belongings and accessories with me. And another part is like planning the whole way. You can do certain level of desktop planning. There are certain tools, online tools, where you can draw and then create your GPS route and download it into your cycling computer. But you don't really see from the desktop, what is the road conditions. I mean, sometimes, as I found out, the routing took me through dirt roads and to forests and so on. So yeah, there was a little bit of preparation required, which was exciting. But at the end of the day, I was cycling through middle of Europe. So it's not that I was cycling through deserted areas. So anything happens to me, I could have find a bike shop, or if something happens to me, a hospital, or get on a train and go home. So yeah, it was challenging, but at the same time, I'm not in the third world country where I'm completely cut out from civilization.
Yeah, true that, but still pretty heavy, because you had to carry your own stuff for the whole 10 days. Wow.
Yes, I did. I had 3 sets of cycling gears and 2 t-shirts and a short and a very, very light sneaker. That's all I had. And then I was trying to wash them in my accommodation. They could do the washing for me. And a couple of times I did the washing myself. So yes, so that's interesting. And of course, the food as well, carrying the right food for the day and eating enough during the evenings or in the afternoons. So that was another challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did you normally stay? Where did you stay?
I booked them like motels and hostels, cheap accommodations. Usually, booking was easy. I did my ride in the first days of September, when Corona was just starting to come back. So tourism was very, very low. So, usually in booking.com, you need to prepay and you cannot change. No, this was much more flexible this time, because I could, even in the last days, to change the accommodation a little bit here and there.
But you were basically doing everything on the go. You didn't pre-book everything.
I pre-booked everything. Yes,
okay,
I had the 10 days of distances and locations for accommodation fixed before I left. So I knew exactly which day, how long I need to ride and where I need to stop. And then I did that based on the type of ride. So when it was more flat, I did them a little bit longer distances, like 180. I think my longest day was probably 190. And when I had some climbing or some hills, then I did 160, so a little bit less. So
Okay.
I was taking these into consideration.
Yeah. Was there like a particularly tough moment of the ride?
Yes, the second day.
The second day already?
Yes. The second day was very, very tough and extremely challenging. So I left, it was a Monday morning when I left Hungary. And then I left, those who know Hungary, the Lake Balaton. Hungarian television morning show was broadcasting live from my start.
No way.
So I got on the bike. I had a partner in day one, a young gentleman, and it was hot. It was really hot. We had a good ride. It was like 32, 33 Celsius. We need to climb quite a lot on that day. And we arrived to a northwestern town in Hungary, which is right on the border. Stayed with a friend, and the friend was supposed to ride with me a little bit on the second day. But we woke up for a very, very, very bad weather. The temperature dropped significantly from the 30 the previous day to less than 15, I think like 12, 13 Celsius. And it was pouring rain, really bad rain. Not only rain, but also was a very, very stormy face wind. So my friend was riding with me a little bit. And then he turned back and went home. And pretty much the whole day, it was non-stop rain, very, very bad face wind. And I had a relatively longer distance for that day because according to the geometry, it was a flat day.
Oh my God.
So riding through Bratislava and then Vienna, it was really, really bad.
On the same day?
Yes, the same day. I was going through 3 countries in one day, and landed or arrived to Tulln, which is something like 40K after Vienna. That was my second night. And it was late, it was already dark. And I spent like 13, 14 hours on the bike. And in 13, 14 hours, I can do 300 kilometers in normal time, but it was only 180 on that day. One of the worst day ever.
And on the other hand, what was rewarding about that? And actually, how did the fundraising go?
The fundraising went very well. I raised nearly 10,000 euro, which is amazing. And we haven't talked about the Omoana House yet. The Omoana House is an AIDS children's shelter, rehabilitation center in Uganda. And from 20 euro, they can feed one child for a month.
Wow.
So you can imagine that 10,000 euro goes a long way to help children to recover and get well from AIDS. So I'm very happy the response had more than 120 donors from 4 continents. So it's not only the money I could raise, but also I could spread the news.
Yeah.
Many around the world think that AIDS is completely eliminated, but it's not true. There are more than 2 million people are dying of AIDS every year. And then if you take that into consideration of any other disease, it is still quite a significant problem. So we shouldn't drop the ball and help those who are in needs for AIDS.
Yeah, no, you're right. And if you consider like the impact that you had, I think you said 10,000 euros, right? What you can do with 20 euros, I mean, the impact is tremendous. And you're right about the awareness as well. So
yes, indeed. So from the fundraising and the response perspective, I'm very, very happy. That was the reward really for the effort. In terms of experience, the personal experience and the physical experience, it's been lifelong experience for sure. The physically and mentally, I guess for the biggest part, it all comes down to balancing the energy, and not only within a day, but over the 10 days, balancing the efforts, the attention. So that's been a great learning. It was very, very tough.
Yeah, I imagine.
Just overall, it was very, very tough and very demanding, but also extremely rewarding.
How did people support you, by the way, on the way? You said that some people were joining virtually or accompanying you in some labs.
Yes, that's happened exactly. So had friends all around Europe who were joining virtually. I had friends who were riding with me a little bit or hosting me. And then, of course, the other point is that a lot of people were sharing and resharing my posts and spreading the news on Instagram, Facebook. And then I also occasionally posted on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Very interesting, Endre. I appreciate you sharing the experience. Well, finally, I wanted to ask you actually a bit off topic. Do you think that this can have participating in fundraising, but also doing these very big physical efforts, can it have a positive impact on your business life as well?
I've already had a lot of impact on my business life. This is not the reason why I do this.
Clearly.
But certainly it has, the relationships you create through these challenges. If, of course, much deeper relationship, if somebody is riding with you or doing things with you, but also just sharing these moments, reaching out and receiving a donation and then following up. That's all deepening relationships. And we all know that those human relationships are essential for conduct good business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, look, Endre, I can only thank you for joining us. I think that it was very interesting to hear your story and your background as well, and hope you have a nice Christmas season. A special Christmas season, though, this year.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and listening to my story. And good luck with your podcast. And I also wish you great Christmas and a great New Year in 2021.